as we're waiting, well, I see, maybe Senator Capito, if you would like to go, that would be great. If not, I can give you a minute, so it's up to you. Senator Capito.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you to all of the three gentlemen for being willing to take on some onerous roles, and I appreciate that. I'm going to start with the NTSB candidate, and I'd like to ask you, and we talked about this in my office on the train derailment issue in East Palestine. What lessons did the NTSB learn from the way you reacted and the way the reactions were that we can help with the community response in particular that we talked about, to be able to make sure that the community gets not just the full information, but as quickly as possible?
Yeah, thank you, Senator. And I enjoyed our visit yesterday, and I enjoyed our discussion about this issue, which is very important. Certainly there were lots of lessons learned from the investigation itself. I have to say, from a sort of a process standpoint, as I indicated when we spoke yesterday, I felt that the on-site visits, the on-site meetings that we convened in East Palestine last summer before last, a two-day investigative hearing, and then this past summer, our final meeting and the adoption of our report. I felt that those were incredibly productive, helpful exercises in terms of demonstrating support, concern, listening to the community, helping the community understand that there are people out there that are sensitive to their concerns and the harm that they've suffered as a result of that horrible accident. I think that it's not something we can do all the time, but I do think it's something that's a very useful exercise when you have a particularly egregious incident like East Palestine.
Yeah, and I think it's something that you told me yesterday that has stuck with me, and I think is certainly true in cases like this. People want to be heard. They want to feel like you care, that you're listening, and that whatever formulations you're taking in are going to have an impact on what your decisions might be in the future. So I appreciate that. Mr. Chen, again, thank you for the visit. And a topic I brought up with you, and if you ascend to the board, which I plan to support your nomination for that, the prices at Amtrak are going up, some of them pretty steep, particularly what I see at the Northeast Corridor. How do you address that? I mean, not so much do you bring them down. I'm not asking for that kind of a promise. What kind of lens do you look through when you're looking at pricing?
Senator Capito, thank you for the question. I think it's something I look forward to digging into. There's obviously a business question, which is what is the optimal pricing to ensure that all the different factors that need to be accounted for are accounted for. But there are other factors as well. For example, we want to make sure that we're investing in the right technology so that the rails are safe. I think that's important. We want to make sure that we do everything we can to keep the trains timely, and all that requires resources. And so it's something I look forward to looking into more if I am confirmed, because certainly we also want it to be affordable. We want people to be able to access the rail experience as well.
Right, and it's obviously it's important in certain corridors for ease of traffic, but you know, as I always say, you want to make sure the trains run on time. But at the same time, it is rather eye-popping, at least for me, when I look to price a ticket, that it seems as though the prices have gone up. The service, the only change I see in the service, and it has been very much on time, which I appreciate, has been the assigned seating, which I hear people grousing about all the time. But I actually kind of like it because you know where you're going, you know where you're going to sit. So I would encourage you to keep that aspect of it. Mr. Bensel, I've been asked about and I don't, excuse me if you've been asked this question, and welcome, about the possibility of a dock worker strike. This would have really devastating effects on all kinds of goods and services. As we're moving into the holiday season, I'm sure that's something that a lot of merchants are thinking about as well. Where are you all on this, and do you have any indications as to what the administration is thinking?
Well, statutorily, our agency is actually immunized from the collective bargaining process. We're not supposed to get involved in it. We're more involved on the consumer side. So we have provided some advice to consumers who may be impacted, shipping consumers, to ensure that they still have rights and protections at the Federal Maritime Commission. That went out yesterday. It is a big, huge economic concern. It worries me because of the volume of trade that our economy needs and relies on. So it is in the collective bargaining process, which is sort of immunized from a lot of the other elements of government. So I'm hopeful that they'll get an agreement to not go into a work dispute. I'm in contact when the administration calls to ask about some of the industry participants, and I'll continue to do that on an ad hoc basis. But we're mostly out of the game other than protecting the rights of consumers during this strike.
Okay, let me just ask one quick little follow-up question here, just for history and my own edification. They renegotiate every 5 years, correct? Am I correct on that?
It depends, but there's basically an agreement, coast-wise agreement on the West Coast that covers Vancouver to San Diego, and then a Atlantic and Gulf Coast agreement. So they can negotiate the terms, but 5 or 6 years is usually the
Okay,
term.
is it customary that we get this close to I mean, have we gotten this close to a strike in the recent past?
No.
No.
And the East Coast, traditionally, there's been a little bit more labor peace, freedom. It's been a little bit more contentious on the West Coast. In this case, what happened was the ocean carriers had incredible profits during the pandemic, and the labor union was not with a rate structure that reflected that, and so they're far apart on wages.
I see. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Capito. I'm going to